We Are Starfleet is continuing on these voyages of podcast coverage of Star Trek. In this episode, we will continue discussing the final season of Star Trek Discovery. You can find us on your social media apps by searching for Starfleet Pod. My name is Mike Slamer, and I am your captain for today's podcast. Joining me is the original, the one and only Sir Ian of the Buckley. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, Mike. Always good to talk to you.
Oh, yeah. We haven't sat down on this season yet. So how have you been
Not
enjoying
since the premiere
season 5?
when we all four of us spoke. Good. You know, I think we spoke during the premiere discussion, and I think we were all sort of in a wait and see how the season unfolds, as we kind of always are, knowing that this is a series that really embraces the season-long, serialized storytelling arcs, and oftentimes how we feel about the season comes down to how well executed these arcs are. And it's been a little up and down. I think as much affection as we have for some of these characters and some individual story moments, I think you and I won't speak for our other two co-hosts, sometimes feel a little skeptical about the wisdom of the long-form storytelling decisions being made. All of that said, I have been enjoying this season so far. As I think you and I have discussed off mic, we are both sad to see this series go, even if it isn't our very favorite Star Trek series. This is one that, you and I began the coverage of on this network a few years back with season 2 leading into season 3, and I'm going to miss it. Not going to lie. I'm going to miss it. I thought that, speaking of this specific episode, pretty good. A lot of action, a lot of setup. It feels like it's a lot of table setting for the finale, and sometimes those episodes can be a little tough to judge on their own. And I think for better or worse, this episode only kind of sort of stands on its own. I think it really mostly serves as place setting for the finale, and so I have I think mixed feelings about it as a self-contained storytelling episode. But I think that overall, these last few episodes in particular, have been solid. We've gotten some really good, solid Trek episodes as we've been having this story unfold over the course of the season, and I'm just really hoping that the season and series finale lives up to the setup that they're hoping for.
Yeah, really well said. I feel like you and I are probably going to agree a lot as we talk through this particular episode, especially on the point of like it being a standalone episode. Any viewer could come in, pick up wherever they are, and enjoy the story as is. But this one in particular, you need to have seen everything leading up to it. And this episode is purely, like you said, a place setting for the finale. So how about it? You want to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Episode 509, LaGrange Point. After Mole and the Breen capture a mysterious structure that contains the progenitor's power, Captain Burnham must lead a covert mission to retrieve it before the Breen figure out how to use it. Written by Sean Cochran and Ari Friedman, and directed by Jonathan Frakes. So for me, Ian, I gotta say, it's a solid episode. It's well-paced. It's exciting. There's a lot of action set pieces within it. And personally, I feel like a broken record, but the show is stunning to look at, and I think that the visual representation of the supermassive black hole binary star system was wicked cool.
Agreed. Yeah, this is an episode that has lots of cool moments in it that escape from one black hole by using the gravitational shear of its binary black hole. I thought that was clever. I thought that was represented in an exciting way on screen. I thought the final moments of the episode were great. You know, there are a few great, you know, instances of tension being built, but it's, for me, it's just solid. It's not anything, largely because it doesn't really feel like there's a lot of standalone story. You know, going back to what I said, it feels like a lot of pretty exciting, well executed setup to the actual conclusion that we're going to have to this story next week. And I think that if you contrast it to the last episode I was on discussing Whistle Speak, that was an episode where it had a story contained within the episode, even though it was a part of the ongoing serialized storytelling that also told a self-contained story. So, you know,
Yeah.
it can be done. We can have self-contained episodes that also move the serialized plot forward. I just feel like they didn't do as good a job of balancing those concerns this week.
Yeah, yeah. In the ramp up to the series finale, I think my biggest criticism is that this episode really felt like, you know, we just got to get to the finale, guys. Let's just get there. We have to get through all this stuff first, so let's just do it. And the stakes, because of that, like coming out of Black Alert, spore jumping into the binary star system, and like you said, having to use the gravitational shear to escape, it's like we went through all of this only to lose the progenitor technology to the Breen dreadnought that warps in at the last second, knows exactly where to look for the actual mystery box, the literal mystery box of the season, and is able to tractor beam it away before Discovery can even do anything. So all that to say, like, why did we have to go through jumping into the binary star system just to get caught in the gravitational shear? We could have jumped outside of it. We did not need to have all that stress. We did not need to have all that action. It was just the place setting for these characters. One thing I got to bring up here is the distinct lack of Detmer and Awashakun throughout the season, number one. And in this episode, Ian, we got the 2 new crew members, and that's cool, fine. Bring on some new crew members, but they're getting lines, and they're quippy, and they're fun. You're telling me we couldn't have Detmer and Owo doing that back and forth?
Yeah, it really. Again, I'm. This is not a we're ragging on Discovery podcast, but this is an example of decision making that I simply don't understand. Now, if it's about the
Right.
actor's availability or whatever, you know, be that as it may, but this is a show which has always, since the very first season, we have constantly talked about how this show does not do enough to establish the bridge crew, even in passing, even in, you know, like, look, the lower decks is a good example of a show that strikes this balance where the focus of the show is on characters who are not part of our heroic bridge crew, and yet we know the names and the personalities of the bridge crew in that half-hour cartoon comedy show to a greater extent than we've ever gotten from this hour-long, you know, primetime Star Trek drama. And I can't help but lay some criticism at the feet of the creative team because it feels like an omission by either indifference or I don't know. Or
Yeah,
it's a conscious
and
choice that I just don't particularly understand, because why on
right.
earth do you have 4 seasons of, you know, you have Detmer go through some development. You have Owo go, you know, explore some of her background. You know, even as underdeveloped as we feel like this bridge crew is, we've at least gotten 4 seasons with them, and now in the final season you want to just jettison these characters into the void. I don't get it, and this is nothing against the current actors who are portraying those, you know, who are piloting the ship. I'm not sure
For
exactly what
sure.
the other console is, you know, but like Helm and Ops are
Yes.
2 fresh faces, and we are just expected to I don't know.
I mean,
Rainer name checks them, so fine, great. We have names
yeah.
now. The episode before the finale, we know their names, but yeah, it just seems like why didn't you? You know, you brought these other characters to the 32nd century. Use them.
Yeah. And to that point, like if these were crew members that had come over with Captain Rayner from his command
Sure,
previously,
sure.
that would make sense. You know, like bring that element in. The storytelling opportunity is there. And like you said, we don't hate on Discovery, but we do have to call out like some of these very it really makes you wonder when they make these decisions.
It
That's
just
all I'm
feels
going
like
to say.
it
It
just
just
feels like an unforced error,
yeah.
which is a phrase we've used to describe some of the decision making with this show. Is
Yeah,
it just feels
yeah,
like okay, but you could have. It is simpler to do the thing that is less confusing to fans, right? It is
yeah,
easier to just keep using the same characters and develop them further than to recast these two new characters. Now
yeah.
maybe it came down to money. Maybe they didn't want to pay these characters
Sure.
because they'd been on the show for this long. Maybe that qualified them to get paid at a certain level. I don't know the ins and outs, but it is impossible not to notice that we just have these strangers just
Yeah.
sitting in, and it, for one episode or two it's one thing because sure, some actors may not be available every single day they shoot, and you might not have the A shift on the bridge at all times. I get it, but it's clear by now, we're in the second to last episode, Owen Detmer may never resurface again,
Exactly.
which just seems like a shame, and it just
Yeah.
seems like a disservice to those actors.
And the final thing I want to say about this in particular is, for the showrunners, for the producers, you would think that they would want to get out in front of that criticism because this has been criticism since day one, season one of Discovery.
It seems like
We've
really easy criticism to
and
address.
exactly, it's so easy to be like, oh, we hear the fans, they want to know more about our bridge crew, so we get more Linus, we get a little bit more Reese, and then we have these new characters. I don't know. It's so easy. And I would think that through all these years, Discovery has always had to be on the back foot. It's always getting all this unwarranted criticism and hate and vitriol that, at some point you would think the producers would want to be like, let's just do the one thing that people are actually asking for. Just give them these characters.
It's
We
an
have
easy
them.
win.
It's an
Yeah,
easy win. It's an easy win.
yeah.
I love the opening scene where Saru brings flowers back to Starbase One, and he's meeting with Tarina, and it's all of it is couched in the drama and the stress of what's going on with the progenitor technology. Everyone in the Federation apparently knows what Discovery is doing. Where the heck is Dr. Kovich through all of this? I keep thinking this throughout all of episode 9 and even episode 8 too previously. Going to the Eternal Gallery, I feel like Dr. Kovich would want to know what the heck is going on and be a part of something. So I do, again, another character, again, more than likely a scheduling thing. He wasn't available, blah, blah, blah. But you just wonder these things, and this is why we're here to talk about them on a podcast. But it's a fun opening sequence, I thought, that stages the diplomatic tension of the situation.
Yeah, again, this episode is a lot of setup, and Saru and Tarina's relationship, which we've always been a big fan of. It does feel a little ominous the way they keep saying, "We've got this wedding to go to. We've got this wedding to plan." It's like, oh God, are we gonna kill one of these characters in the last episode just
Yeah.
to wring a little bit of cheap drama out of everything? I really hope that's not the direction they go. If they do, I'll be criticizing the show. But yeah, I like all of the, again, the play setting in terms of Saru's story in this show, the discussion that he has with Tarina, ultimately the journey the two of them go on, where they both discuss the fact that neither of them wants their feelings for the other, their personal relationship to interfere
Yep.
with their sense of duty. Each of them feeling like the other may be at risk of doing that. I like these notes that they hit with their relationship in this season. I'd like to say that I feel like all of this stuff with Michael and Book's relationship is getting the same sort of care and attention, but it does feel like with only one episode left, it feels like they're trying to cram both
Yeah.
the conflict that they have and the solution to it into just a couple of episodes rather than to let this relationship and the difficulty that they're having, kind of breathe a little bit
Right.
and have a sense of ebb and flow and up and down. Instead, I feel like they're going to cram, a lot of emotional revelations into 45 minutes next week. And
Yeah.
and Discovery isn't always at its best when it's trying to do all of those things all at once, because inevitably what happens is that something doesn't get serviced, whether it's character or story.
Right.
Something ends up not getting serviced properly when they're trying to do all of these things at once, all in one episode.
To that point, though, I do want to point out that the series finale next week has an 88-minute runtime.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's basically feature length. So
Yeah.
I guess it won't all be wrapped up in 45 minutes. That is actually
Yeah.
good to know. I'm glad that it's a supersized double length finale,
Me
because
too.
it does feel odd that this. I mean, I guess it's the way of all of these Star Trek shows now, that we're only getting 10 episodes in this final season. It's like we
Yeah.
started with 15, and then it was 14, then it was 13 for 2 seasons, and now we're wrapping it all up in 10. It does feel like the rush to get everything done was a factor here, but I'm glad to hear that it's not going to be a 44-minute episode, that it'll be twice that.
Yeah, exactly. And not for nothing, but it just seems like the streaming era, everybody's got these nice little packaged TV shows with nice little numbers attached to them. It's no longer the 24 episode season long arc of the 90s. It's no longer the 16 episode, package deal that we used to get back in the 2000s, and then they whittled it all down, to 13, 12, and now it's just 10. Or if you look at Marvel, sometimes they give you 6, So it just feels like a sacrifice to the streaming gods, if you will. What did you think about the whole A team, B team? We're splitting them up. What do you think of this plan that Michael Burnham comes up with to capture the progenitor technology from the Breen dreadnought? It's a heist, Ian. We gotta go on a heist.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. The reason that they keep throwing these obstacles in the way of the crew is obviously so that they have something to overcome in this week's episode. So at first it's the fact that, they got out of the black hole danger, and then immediately the Breen show up and steal the thing right out from under them. And
Immediately.
then
They didn't have to think twice about it.
Yep, they have to figure out a way to get it back. And of course, it's science fiction, so there's a massive enemy, ship that has an exhaust port. That's a weakness of it, of course. And so, then they have that as a way of breaking onto the ship, which, seems a little silly, but it's also something that we've seen so much that, I mean, look, it's a cliche, so I don't love it. It's a bit of a trope, but whatever. I accept it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There's a weak point in this massive enemy ship that we can beam through. Fine.
Of
Whatever.
course. Love that.
Splitting up kind of makes sense. All four of them, traveling through the ship together probably would have drawn more attention, not less. So I think it makes sense to position two people on the bridge to kind of be able to keep tabs of what's going on, big picture, and then you have another team that's doing the dirty work. All of that makes sense. The escalations of them getting captured, that all made sense. And then in the end, Maul jumps into the device, and of course Burnham goes after her. It seemed the sort of one element of Burnham going into the device that didn't really track with me was, she exchanges this look with Book beforehand, and I kind of
Yeah.
expected Book to like give her a little nod, like, I know what you have to do and it's okay. And instead he acts like surprised, like, do you not know this woman? Did you not assume that she was just going to like jump through this thing? I thought you were in love. The fact that he was so surprised by that and alarmed, it was just like, Book, come on, did you know this person at all? But I liked the continued escalation. I thought it all ramped up. My biggest problem with the episode just remains the fact that it's all set up.
No, I mean, I'm right there with you. And considering last episode where Michael had this big emotional revelation and this breakthrough about her relationship and the subconscious, and that virtual AI taking on the representation of Book, she's at the point where she's ready to like accept the new dynamic of the relationship, and she's here, and she knows that she loves him, and she knows that he loves her, and this is just a temporary thing, so they're always going to be okay. I feel like that's where that she was trying to go with it, with that look. And it wasn't the only look in the episode she gave Book. She also gave him a look, gave Book a look earlier on when they were like getting this plan all started, and she kept looking over to be like, is this crazy or what? Is this crazy or what? This is crazy. It's like, yes, it is. And it just felt a little, it was fun, but it also felt like most of the things in this episode, Ian, there were no stakes. There were no stakes. It was just, we're going to do this thing. This is the obstacle. You're going to come along. You're going to watch it. You're going to enjoy it. And then you're going to move on to the finale, because that's where you really want to be. So everything throughout that, even when she steps into the progenitor tech, whether it's a portal to another dimension, a different universe, maybe it's like a Guardian of Forever type contraption, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But even when she steps in, I didn't feel the stakes. Previously, she talked about, oh, I'm not worried. I can get the progenitor technology because I was told the secret password, and nobody else knows the secret password. So throughout this whole thing, they're trying to set it up where the Breen soldiers, as they're going into the progenitor tech, like they're dying or they're disappearing or it's some type of a threat. But is it really? We don't know until we know. And in my opinion, I think it's just one of those like magical things where it automatically knows who's a bad guy and who's a good guy. So it will have that filter already set up, and we don't even have to worry about who else is in there.
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily doing that. We don't yet know what information Michael was given.
That's true.
She doesn't even tell anyone else, conveniently enough.
Conveniently.
So that the audience remains in ignorance as well. But yeah, she basically said, but I was given information that they won't have. Of course, she doesn't share it, but I think there will be something a little bit more active in terms of passing through whatever filter this thing is. I don't think it's going to be a passive evil detector filter. I think that you're going to have to do something, say, provide some sort of input, and in order to pass through whatever the final challenge is. Otherwise, this just seems sort of like a, I thought of an Iconian gateway kind of thing where you're just walking right into it, and then you're going to, like, from the perspective of the person walking into it, you're just going to warp somewhere. It's not, the reason you aren't detected inside the thing is because you aren't inside it anymore.
Right. There was never an inside.
There was no inside, exactly.
Yeah. I like some of the characterization that's going on with the Breen. You know, the Breen are a big question mark in Star Trek lore and Star Trek history. They've been name dropped several times. We've seen some limited engagement in Enterprise with them. Of course, you know, maybe half the planet or so was bombarded. No big deal. But what do you think about all the back and forth between Burnham and the random Breen soldiers?
I like that we're getting more information. I mean, it's not like we're getting deep lore, but we're just getting through interaction with them just more of a flavor for who the Breen are, what they, what they're all about, the structure, their hierarchical structure, just all of these bits of information are completely novel because we've never taken any
Yeah,
time to explore the Breen. And, there's always the risk of the more you end up revealing, the less mysterious they are, the less interesting
sure.
they become. There's probably some of that's going to go on, or maybe arguably already has, with all this Breen stuff. But honestly, like, mostly Trek fans are happy to learn more about Vulcans, are happy to learn more about Klingons, about Cardassians, about Ferengi. So if Disco wants to explore a little bit of the Breen, like, I don't have a knee jerk negative response to that.
Yeah,
I'm
no, sure.
open to all this new stuff. I would love it if, in some further exploration of the Breen, because we're obviously not going to get that more of it on Discovery. I would like to see a little bit more of a flavor to them. Right now, they just feel a little generic,
Yeah,
militaristic
yeah,
Star Trek sci-fi race, and not enough of cultural specificity other than the kind of the ruling hierarchy that really we've gotten with these other Star Trek races. I would love to see, now that the door's been opened, for there to be some more genuine, interesting exploration of what does make them distinct from
right,
generic sci-fi militaristic race.
right. No, totally agree with that. I did like the little bit on the bridge where Ensign Tall and Commander Reese are taking over the console, and Tall gets her little quip in. I'm sorry, their little quip in. Everyone picks on the ensign. I enjoyed
Yeah,
that. I enjoyed that. It reminded me of like that classic TOS style camp. Like, hey, it's a dangerous situation, but boy, do I have a joke lined up for this.
yeah, and I like the inclusion of Adira. I like the character growth that they're receiving. I think that the evolution that they have made from this, very very nervous, unsure of themselves character into, yes, only an ensign, but one who is growing in confidence and competence with every passing episode. And so, really like the journey that this character has been on. And if there's one element of Discovery going away that does make me sad, it's that this particular character won't get to continue to grow and evolve unless they become involved with the Starfleet Academy show.
Definitely, definitely. And I did like that they received that massive recommendation and overwhelming supportiveness from Tilly as well. That was such a nice thing. You know, Burnham looks at Stamets. You know, Stamets is like, like, I have a personal attachment here. I don't want Tall to go on this away mission for obvious reasons. And then when Burnham looks at Tilly, and Tilly is like, yeah, they can do this. It's like, yes, girl, that was awesome. We love to see that. And I think that Tall has done really well on Discovery in terms of growth of their characterization, and the overall arc has been quite good, and it's a really welcome one as opposed to, the last time we had a child ensign on the bridge of a starship. Uh, you know, they've had more of a natural evolution into the process, which I think has been really welcome. I also liked Stamets and Culber walking down the hallway. I thought that was a little bit of a nice familial moment with Tall. They haven't really had a whole lot of scenes together, and I kind of thought that the season would have Culber exploring his faith a little bit more, and how that works with parentage as well, leaving behind a legacy, right, in Tall. So I was kind of thinking that we would get a little bit more from that story. Here we are at the finale, and I don't think we're going to get much of that, if anything, maybe some a 5-minute wrap-up towards the end. But I do wonder where that story could have gone. And that's the one thing that I always take away from Discovery, is that they throw out these really interesting story threads to see what will get picked up by other writers. And they don't always pick up on the same things. And I feel like there was space in this episode, especially, where we could have taken more than, I don't know, 25 seconds of Culber and Stamets being worrying parents over Adira Tall. I think we could have had something a little bit more robust, a little bit more defined in terms of what story they were trying to tell, other than just being the worried parents.
Yeah, the same can be said too of Stamets' feeling of existential ennui after the
Yes.
shutdown of the Spore Drive program. It seemed like in the first couple of episodes we were being set up clearly that this was going to be part of his emotional arc for the season, and if we achieved resolution to that, it happened off screen. Stamets now seems fine, other than maybe some lip service paid to it along the way during those first few episodes. He's fine.
He's fine.
Don't need to worry about that. It was
He's fine.
just a blip on his emotional radar. And similarly, Culber's personal journey seems to have come to an end, since that's what the script said at the end of episode 6.
Yeah.
He resolved his issue that he was having for those couple of episodes, and now he's fine. And it does feel, like there are some threads that have just been dropped, and now we're in wrap up the season / series mode, and none of those things are going to be revisited or resolved.
No.
And even if they were revisited, they're not going to be resolved in a really truly organic, satisfying way. That would have required more attention over more episodes, and that just unfortunately they kind of painted themselves into a corner, I think, with this even further truncated final season. You can't tell me that if you had given these characters a couple more episodes this season, that they couldn't have continued to flesh out some of these subplots that they set up earlier in the season.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. What do we think about Maul, the villain? She's turned into quite the empress, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, she still is very much in it for her own personal reasons. I mean, I think that it's a little bit of... She's clearly exploiting the rigid hierarchy of Breen culture and their almost seeming religious dedication to to Tal, to the heir to be, who will only be if they're successful in this mission to get the progenitor tech. And so, in a sense, you get the sense that she is exploiting the religious fervor of this group of people to whom she is still very much an outsider, but because of her unique relationship to this to this figure, the Scion, she is able to continue to exploit the resources of this ship and its crew to her ends, which, for the time being, those ends align. She wants the Scion returned to life, as do all of these people. But once he is, her plan is still going to be to fuck right off and go do whatever she wants with Tal. And it is not
Locke.
clear that with Locke, it is not clear that they are going to actually be able to have that freedom and have the independence that they were
Yeah.
initially seeking. I mean, they were desperately on the run. I have a hard time imagining that Locke is just going to, assuming he is revived, just go, actually, you know what? The thing that I was willing to risk everything to leave, I think I'll actually embrace that responsibility. I don't think he's going to do that.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I think like Maul is really kind of enjoying this moment that she's in. Yeah, she's 100% taking advantage of the hierarchy, and she's playing her own game. It's very clear that that's, up until Locke, that's all she was doing, is playing her own game, playing everybody as much as she could. But this feels scary in a way that other villains don't, because it tells me that she's already lost. And in my mind, the people who have nothing to lose are the most dangerous. So she's currently top dog on this Breen Dreadnought ship. There's another Breen Dreadnought ship that's been talked about coming, it's off screen at the moment, but it's been talked about on its way. And it just feels like there's a big clash going to happen. Is it going to happen at Starbase 1? Sure. Who knows what's going to happen, but my money is on Maul being the X factor in this. Just pure chaos. I think as long as she gets Locke, she's out of there. She doesn't care what happens. She'll pull the nuclear codes and hit the big red button, whatever she's got to do. And that's scary.
Yeah, it is curious. Originally, I thought that the whole like Book Cleveland connection with her
Oh, yeah.
was going to play some role in resolving things. Again, a thread that feels like did is that all we were going to do with that, or
I forgot about it, to be honest.
have that? Yeah, it seemed to me like he was maybe going to be was going to play a role in talking Maul over to actually let's not turn this over to the Brain and just let them do whatever they want with it. But if it's going to be her and Michael confronting one another, someone with whom she has no shared history, I mean, it is the Michael Burnham show, so it does feel like if there's going to be a person who provides any sort of solution or resolution, it's going to be coming from her. It can't ever come from any of the other characters.
Fair,
That's not
totally fair.
That's not what this show is. But it does feel like we were getting set up, for there to be some sort of emotional breakthrough between Book and Maul, for him to be able to reach her somehow by, reminding her of this connection that they share, and it really doesn't feel like that's the direction they're going to go. Of course, like you said, the finale is 88 minutes, so there's plenty of time. They could actually bring that back around, have that become relevant to how everything's going to play out with Maul. But yeah, right now it feels like at some point, they're obviously not going to finish this series with the Breen destroying the Federation. So we do sort of know Michael's going to figure this out.
Of course.
And it feels like they're setting this up so that Maul is going to be in a position to have to choose to quote unquote do the right thing, and will be convinced to do so somehow, either by Locke or by Book or by Michael.
How did we feel about Commander Rayner in charge of the Discovery for a change?
I like Rayner. I think Rayner's been a good character.
Yeah.
I wish that we could have done even more with him this season. Had this transition be a little more gradual, I think that's something that Craig's called out on some of the episodes discussing this Rayner character, where he seems like he's going to be a really tough nut to crack, but it's actually going to not take that many episodes to do it because, hey, we've got places to be and things to do by episode 10. And again, that is one of the. It feels like it's just a built-in challenge that this show is constantly going to. Well, it has constantly had of.
Yeah.
Well, we only have so much time to resolve the issues the character frictions that are being set up. So we're going to do it kind of quickly. We're going to we're going to wrap it up kind of neatly in an episode or two in the middle of the season, so that by the time we get to the end, there are no more conflicts. Everyone is happily working together, and we solve the season problem. Rayner's pacing back and forth, that it was making everyone kind of uneasy, that he didn't feel comfortable sitting in the captain's chair. I liked it as a character detail. I didn't necessarily buy that he was that uncomfortable with the idea of sitting in. He's been sitting in a captain's chair for 30 years.
Yeah.
Not all of which was on the same ship. I'm just assuming. And even if I'm wrong about that, you have the con. Everyone who has the con sits in the chair.
Yeah.
Like, if you've got such a problem with it, I don't know why we're only learning about it now. And I think it's basically just to set us up for the moment where he does take the seat. And I get it, but also it feels like it's just a writing gimmick to give us the impact of him actually sitting down, rather than it organically emerging from who this character is and what their background is. So I couldn't help the feeling that even though I liked the moment, it felt a little contrived.
You were led there.
It felt a little manufactured by the writers.
Definitely. Like you, I liked it. I also felt like, okay, manufactured, is a great way of putting it. It seems like Commander Rayner has finally earned all the respect. He's earned his place on Discovery. He's ready to do what needs to be done with this crew. So, it's interesting, hearing you say if we could have done more. I totally agree with you. Overall, though, I really do like Commander Rayner as an addition to Discovery. I was thinking also to myself, had we had him last season, I wonder what that would have been like, as far as being the foil to Michael's persona. Of course, we had Saru. But nevertheless, this episode overall, we both like it. It's just a place setting. Action sequences are great. The visuals are great. It's just, we have the finale now. So I kind of feel bad that episode 9 doesn't really get a chance to stand on its own. It's just sandwiched right in between.
It feels like a part 1 without being called a part 1. I mean,
That's
just
a good
the
way
way
of
it
putting
ends
it.
with that,
That's a good way of putting it.
It ends with this great Rayner moment, but it feels like that, okay, we're now all ready to act, and credits. And next week we're gonna get resolution. And there's a ceiling on how much enjoyment I can get out of episodes like that. They can be executed at their very highest level. We only mentioned at the very beginning that Jonathan Frakes directed this episode, but one can't help but think of, Best of Both Worlds Part 1, where it's this, the captain is off the ship, maybe never to be seen again. We don't know what the situation is. First officer has to make a decision. He takes the chair, he takes charge, he makes a decision. Very dramatic. Cut to 3 months later, Best of Both Worlds Part 2. That's the episode that established that kind of trope in Star Trek. Now I think we're all a little bit tired of it. I'll speak for myself, at least. I'll say that this kind of thing is, I get it that it's maybe just a part of serialized storytelling. Maybe there's no getting around occasionally having episodes like this, but it does feel like there just isn't enough that this episode on its own is offering us, other than just being a part 1. And it's good, it's fine, but I think people listening can tell we're struggling a little bit to come up with things to talk about with this episode, because we could just do like a blow-by-blow plot summary. But in terms of theme and character exploration, there's not a ton here.
Yeah, most of my notes are just like, okay, we have a shuttle bay with an awesome flyby and an escape plan. Okay, we have
Right.
a
I thought the
portal.
I yeah, okay, since we're talking about sequences that were really cool, I like the Discovery flying in to like punch a hole in the shuttle bay and get everything in that shuttle bay to blast out into space, including
Yeah,
the artifact that they're all after. Yeah, good solution to that. Like great action moment. I thought
great
the build up
sci-fi.
and tension of that
I'm here for
sequence
it.
was all really cool. All the pew pews at Discoveries flying in, pretty cool. It did make me wonder, kind of in the back of my head, like, man, I didn't think that I thought this enormous dreadnought, uh, like I thought that the Discovery would be having a little bit of a harder time, like just flying straight at it for that long, but whatever. It's an
Well,
exciting
they lost
sequence.
they lost torpedo tube 7, Ian.
Yeah, they lost one of their torpedo tubes in that
They only
entire
lost
run that
one
should have
torpedo
been
tube.
much more suicidal than that. Like
Yeah.
honestly, like the Badlands gave them more trouble.
Yes.
But
The
yeah,
the
that
power
all
scales of these ships are just don't correlate to each
they're
other.
very inconsistent. It's really
Yeah.
just whatever the dictates of the particular scene need them to be, and that's it's
Yep.
unfortunate. It's a bit on the lazy side, but again, whatever. It was a cool sequence. It was a cool plan. Lots of daring do, lots of excitement. All of that was effectively rendered, and I liked it. It was all exciting. There just wasn't a lot more to the episode
Yep.
than these are a series of exciting action sequences leading us to the inevitable, confrontation that, like Saru is going to go off on this solo diplomatic effort to to head off the other Breen commander who's just been name checked and is just
Yeah.
out there as this menace looming over everyone else. But even that
Ooh.
feels a little, that feels a little. It's hard to really invest in the stakes of that
Yeah,
because this
100%.
is just some character who's only been name checked by Rayner and some others as this off-screen threat, so that we know when they emerge. I mean, all the Breen look alike anyway under those helmets. I don't feel like when another Breen in armor shows up, I'm going to feel any more threatened by their presence than I am by all the others, which was the only sort of negative note I had as far as like the action of the episode goes. Once they're all in Breen suits fighting one another, I can't tell who's who until they
Oh
win.
yeah, yeah. I had no idea.
Right, and I get that it's tough. They have to blend in with all the others. So how do you make them stand out in an action sequence? It feels like an impossible problem to solve, and yet when you're having a fight that's just four costumed people who and you can't tell them apart, it does rob the action sequence of its tension and excitement that might otherwise be there because a you already know the main characters are probably going to be fine in any fight they get into, and B, you have the added problem of not being able to tell who's who. So, uh, I don't know really how to feel about this looming threat that Saru's
Yeah.
going to head off.
We've been here before. We've
Yeah,
been here before. We've had the looming threat with Control. We've had the looming threat with the Burn and the Emerald Chain. It's just we don't need it this time around. It's not necessary. It was never really necessary to begin with. And to your point, they're all costumed, and just because you give them a different name doesn't mean that we're going to know what that means when they all show up. So yeah, it's like, okay, maybe they should have saved the action for the actual finale and just left this with all that threatening buildup and just let us talk about it for a while, because all the action in this episode does fun, cool to look, cool to experience and hear it and see it
I
and
mean,
view it, whatever. But it did nothing for me at the end of the day because it was just there. It was
I,
just there.
I mean, I'll disagree a little. I mean, all the action, at least to me, felt like it had a plot function. This
Yeah,
wasn't like,
but the stakes weren't
the
there.
reason the Discovery had that. Well, in terms of the in terms of the show in a sort of a meta sense, yeah, because the stakes aren't going to
Yeah.
become real until the finale.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, well, we need to do this, and we need to get the artifact out of their ship. Okay, well, we're going to beam onto the ship secretly and try and attach this device that'll let us beam it out. Okay, that plan failed. So
Right.
what are we going to do? Well, we're going to ram Discovery into that shuttle bay to decompress it and blast everything inside it out into space. Okay, great. So I didn't really have I thought the action sequences that took place, like they all made sense in terms of their plot function, but it all in a larger sense,
Yeah.
resulted in an episode that just feels like setup. There wasn't
Sure.
any deeper thematic exploration. We didn't really get a deeper sense of characters. No one's conflict was resolved,
Mm-hmm.
personal or professional at all this week. It really did just feel like we were, treading water in in an occasionally exciting way, and that's I have mixed feelings about it.
Well, you have shared your mixed feelings. Are there any final final feelings you might have, mixed or not?
Only of anticipation. I
Yeah.
am going to be, like we said, we are sad to see the show go, but I do, after this episode, feel like, okay, get on with it. We gotta. I want to get to the next week's episode, and they obviously want to leave you at the end of this episode with a sense of, no, we can't just stop there. I need to see what happens next. Fair enough.
I mean,
But
yeah.
in the case of this particular episode, it's more a case of, okay, but seriously, nothing's happened yet. Really, I need to see next week's episode.
Yeah, yeah. Theories or anything you want to ponder?
I think to give the show credit, similar to kind of last season, where I had no idea what to expect once we were able to get inside 10C space, once
Right.
that gate opened for Discovery, truly into the unknown, which is a good feeling to have as an audience member, especially as a Trek audience member. It's good to not know what to expect next. I As always, I sort of fear that whatever we imagine will be a little bit more exciting or interesting than what they actually do. That's always the risk with mystery
Yeah, for
boxes.
sure.
But I, you know, I don't have the slightest idea. I hope that it's not more than just Genesis 2.0, which is kind of sort of how they're positioning it. Is that it's a new and improved Genesis technology? I mean, not
Yeah.
really. I understand that it's an ancient technology. It's not really a new iteration on Genesis. But in terms of the idea of the tech and how it's used as a storytelling device in Trek, it does so far feel pretty much like we're talking about a kind of a Genesis
Yeah.
technology, and I saw that story already.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
We,
do
we,
hope
we have
they,
seen The Wrath of Khan, yes.
yeah, and so I do hope that there is more to it than that, but I feel like it is tough whenever you're talking
Yeah.
about grand, huge sci-fi ideas and ancient. I thought they actually did last season a pretty good job of making 10C feel
Agree.
awesome and alien, and just, as we discussed at the time, wish they'd just gone a little bit further with it, or that we had a little bit more of it. So, maybe they'll give us something interesting inside this mystery box where we'll say, oh, that was actually pretty cool. I almost wish we had gotten more of that. But I don't know. I really don't know what to expect.
That is a good thing. That is a
What
good
about what
thing.
about what about you? What do you think is going to happen?
I have this overwhelming feeling that I'm largely going to like the finale, but I'm not going to be satisfied with the finale. And as far as how the show is going to wrap it up, like you, I genuinely don't really know what to expect out of the actual progenitor tech. The name of the finale, the title of the episode, is Life Itself. So I am inclined to agree with your sentiment of a Genesis device of some sort, but also I am willing to be surprised, and I'm hoping that it will be some sort of subversion of that expectation where it's not actually life. The Federation president in this episode even says the progenitor technology is the literal power of creation. That's some biblical way of putting it, in my opinion. And I just don't buy that it really is some sort of life-giving device, you know. And I understand that we've been on this journey for this weapon of mass destruction, or this gift of unbelievable power, but I just don't think that it's going to be what everybody on the show thinks it's going to be. And I could be wrong about that, but you know, at the end of the day, I'm here for whatever they're going to give me, and this is it. This is it. I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore. You know, I thought we were going to have a couple more episodes, you know, maybe one more season. I thought we were going to get 2 more seasons, to be honest with you. I thought we were going to go the full 7, and then they would call it there. But, you know, the finale as a series, I'm just not going to be satisfied. I just feel that in my bones.
Yeah, I think it does feel like there's going to be, obviously they're going to explore the 32nd century in this Starfleet Academy show, so it's not going to be the end of this era of Trek, at least for the time being. So at least that feels like they're, you know, firmly committed to exploring. But yeah, it does feel like there's meat left on the bone.
Yeah.
In terms of, you know, we have Starfleet Academy, maybe they'll have a ship. Even DS9 got a ship eventually.
They'll have a ship. They'll have a ship.
You know, they'll have it. Maybe it's going to be the ISS Enterprise that they recovered. That's going to be their training vessel. Just so that they can save money and keep reusing the Strange New World. They'll redress the Strange New World set.
All right. We're calling it right here. We're recording 10 p.m. Eastern Time, May 21st, 2024. Ian has just stated that the ISS Enterprise will be the ship of Starfleet Academy. Boom. It's in the universe, Ian.
They're gonna rechristen it, and you know, so I think that, and maybe even have some of these characters like Tilly return. But I do regret that there isn't going to be a more robust exploration in a starship of this 32nd century, the new order that we've, you know, they keep teasing us with little details about the way that the galaxy has evolved, about the way that these new power structures have emerged. But like, get us out there, get us exploring that. I mean, like, you know, I don't want to be someone who compares Discovery to Strange New Worlds as if Strange New Worlds does everything right and Discovery does everything wrong. I think there's way too much of that in Star Trek fandom discourse. However, there is an undeniable element of comfort to having a Star Trek series where there is a ship that goes on missions each week and, you know, encounters some new race, some new situation, some new ethical dilemma each week. And maybe they're pushing a season-long story or season-long character development along the way as well. But yeah, there is something to the you know, I wish that we had gotten the opportunity to have a Voyager-like show in the 32nd century with Discovery and her crew and just exploring, discovering what the 32nd Century Federation has to offer.
Rebuilding it. They talk so much in various episodes, both last season and this season, about how important it is to rebuild the Federation. And
Yeah.
you
And
don't see
instead,
any of that.
We've got Saru working on that off camera,
Yeah.
off screen, and we've got Discovery dealing with yet another universe-threatening situation, and it does feel like, hey, you know what? If that is the goal of Discovery, like if that was going to be
I guess.
the way the show was going to be, then maybe 5 seasons is enough. Because
Yeah.
I felt like there wasn't enough new ground being broken after the excitement of emerging in this completely new situation.
Yeah. Agreed. Ian,
Right.
we have, or are we moving, or have we moved to Film Stories?
We have moved.
We have moved. We are now part of the Film Stories media network. It's filmstories.co.uk. We Are Starfleet, originally part of the We Made This network, is now a part of the Film Stories media network. Go check out filmstories.co.uk for more information. Tons of great reviews on TV, gaming. All your podcasts are here too. Podcast 616, Make It So, We Are Starfleet. There's so many other cool podcasts out there. Ian, tell me about your Severance pod and tell me what you know about season 2 dropping.
Well, no news yet on the air date for season 2. We only know that production has wrapped up. So the only word that we've gotten is kind of cryptic hints that it will be coming sooner than we hope. Sorry, not sooner than we hope, sooner than we expect. So one doesn't necessarily know what to do with that information. Maybe it will air before the end of this year. Personally, I'm thinking it'll air more beginning of 2025. There's just a lot on Apple TV's release schedule. The strikes delayed production significantly, so the window that they were looking for in terms of release has almost certainly been pushed back dramatically. So I wouldn't expect new episodes this year, but we might get pleasantly surprised and get a drop in the fall. It does. It depends on not just how post production goes, but just how they feel like they want to manage the release, because Apple TV has other shows that are going to be returning, coming out. I mean, I think Silo is coming back this fall.
Yep.
That's their, that will not be released. They won't release Severances the same time as that. So
No, definitely
it's
not.
so it'll come probably after whenever Silo airs.
Fair enough.
At some point. We did just record a brand new episode this past Friday, so I will be releasing that sometime in the next week or two.
Excellent. Can't wait for the return of Illumination Above All.
Oh, yeah, I didn't actually say the name of the podcast, Illumination Above All. Thank you very much.
Yes, also part of the Film Stories Media Network. Yes, this is exciting stuff. Changes, or it's not exciting. I don't know. Folks, We Are Starfleet can be found on all of your social media platforms. Just search at Starfleet Pod, and we'll show up in your search menu. Thanks for subscribing to our podcast, and please, if you can, hit us with a 5-star review on your listening platform. It really helps with engagement, and the algorithm will then push our podcast out to more people, which means we will come back and continue to deliver great coverage on Star Trek. And even though Star Trek Discovery is coming to a close, this podcast is not. We are still covering Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, and Prodigy. Whenever Prodigy Season 2 shows up on Netflix, we will be there to cover it.
And Academy 2, whenever we get more news about that, we'll probably update people, because...
And the Section 31 movie.
Oh, yeah, the Section 31 movie, too. All of that falls in our... Well, we don't know what era this Section 31 movie is taking place at. Have we gotten confirmation on that? It's going to be at some point in the past. If it's next-gen era, it might be over on Make It So.
Oh, okay.
But we will at the very least talk about it.
We'll definitely talk about it. We can't not talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Folks, thank you so much for sticking with us. That brings this week's Discovery Journey to a close. Until next time, let's hit it.